Welcome to the Rural Reflections Colin Dave podcast, co-hosted by my brother Dave in Carrington, North Dakota, and Grant Nelson, that's me, here at the studios of Thief River Falls Radio. Dave, how are you doing this weekend?
Pretty good. Been a nice relief from the heat. It was, I think, about 80 yesterday is all it got to. And so it's been a good weekend so far.
You know, this weather makes me think about, the Western Minnesota Steam Threshers reunion and some of the other kind of neat farm shows that we typically have going on this time of the year. Have you heard any more about Big Iron, or has any more companies decided to cancel out?
I haven't heard any more, but they're keeping it sounding like it's going to be on yet, and I don't know what to expect really, but I imagine a lot depends on what happens during this month now,
I suppose. What were the two groups that had canceled? There's a couple of pretty big ones that had gone already.
Yeah, it's Case IH and John Deere. John Deere went first and then Case IH. And I haven't heard any more. They haven't announced whether AGCO or that has canceled or is considering or whatever, but they keep saying that the show is going to go on.
Okay. I tell you what, I wouldn't mind going to something. I haven't been to anything for an awful long time. I've been to get coffee, and I've been to work, and I've been home, and that's about it. But I'm getting to know the cattle pretty well, so I think I can take a little break from them. I've noticed one thing when I come to work in the morning. It's getting a little more dark outside, but you can see the wheat fields they reflect more light back, and that's because they're starting to turn. We've done a little bit of barley around here, but you were talking before we got on the air here that there's been some barley combined out in Carrington area.
Yeah, they've started with some of that. There is wheat that probably will be ready, I don't know, in the next week to 10 days. And anybody that's had any rye is combining it. So, it's a start.
Yeah. We've got some people doing barley around here. We were talking with John Nelson from Farm Service Agency. I was surprised at the amount of oats and barley that are actually grown in the area. He's the CED for Red Lake, Marshall, and Pennington. And there was actually a fair amount. I wouldn't have imagined that there was any being grown around here, but apparently there must be enough people who still go for the malting market, and there's still enough people who have some cattle that they still raise some oats.
Yeah, well, they raise oats for a couple of reasons. They've been haying oats crop out here, and that was their intention, was to make hay out of it. I think if you look at the big cattle producers, they're very wary of the fact that they're not going to have as much access to distillers' grains if the ethanol plants continue to be slowed down, And so they've been bailing up pretty much anything they can. As people were finishing last year's corn crop a month or so ago, they were scrambling out there to get out and bale up corn stover yet. So there's kind of a variety of all kinds of things around here. Some people have seeded in, I suppose it's sorghum or some kind of a corn grass like that into stubble that they've harvested. Some people have tuned up their hay fields a little bit with that. And there's all kinds of different things going around trying to get cattle feed for the winter.
I suppose they're going to need a little bit of sweetness, some energy to go along with all that CRP hay or whatever they can get, and that sorghum would be pretty good. And then oat hay, especially when you get it right in the boot there, that's pretty good palatable food. Now, speaking of animals, we've been tending to our 2 flocks of cats. We got the one indoor bunch and got one outdoor bunch, and we're working on both of them. It sounds like you've got somebody in the background who has something to say.
Oh my gosh, yes. I don't know if she's just confused this morning or what, but she's walking around and definitely making herself known. I fed her already, so she's got that taken care of. But I don't know if she wants some real personal attention or what the heck's going on, but she's sure noisy.
Well, she's got, what's her name first off, Dave?
Sadie,
that's right. You know, as people get older, I think they're probably the same as cats. You start calling the basics of life chores in the morning. So she's got her eating done. So she's got that one chore out of the way. So,
yeah, well, she's working on 21, so she's a record age cat for us. Most of them haven't lived that long.
Well, you must provided her an awful nice life for her to go that long. Let's talk a little bit about combining. Let's just talk about combines. You and I were trading pictures of old combines this week. And the first one we should talk about is the International 303. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, the only thing I really know of them is that I used to see them, especially when we used to go through Nebraska to get to Wichita for Thanksgiving and that. All through Nebraska, there was these little bitty combines with 2 row corn heads sitting alongside the road, it seemed like. And so that little 303 combine, I hadn't even really seen that size, but it was like a 33 John Deere or a 44 or something, you know, it was smaller than what we had even. And I thought we had a pretty small combine, you know, at the time. But anyway, those things are not something you see every day. And then that other one that steers like a swather, you know, there aren't very many combines like that.
Nope. That's for sure. Yeah, that like not even a hydrostatic drive. I suppose that was a series of belts and pulleys or something along those lines.
Belts and pulleys, and I'm guessing something of a nightmare. I don't know.
Yeah, especially when something breaks inside a casing that has 20 to 25 bolts on it to get the access panel off. Those are always a lot of fun. Also, that Massey 410 I sent you, wasn't that about in the nicest shape you've ever seen? Even the cab inside was nice and clean.
Yeah, that was a pretty one. I'm surprised somebody didn't just pick that up for nostalgic value, you know, coming with all this stuff. We got a guy out here that's a real Massey collector for combines. He's got all kinds of stuff. He would probably be very interested in that.
I bet he would. The 410, I can't remember what the 410 had, but we had a Super 92 way back when, and that had a 327 Chevy engine in it. I remember helping our brother-in-law overhaul that. Of course, I was like 8 or 9, so help should probably be put in air quotes, but that was a pretty good combine too, as I recall, wasn't it?
Yeah, they were good combines. Surprising how, you know, you think you've got the best when you have whatever you have, you know, but then when you get on the seat of another one, you'll find something good about that one. And the Massey, I drove that Massey some too, but that was a pretty good combine. Eight grain like crazy, and you could get a lot done with it.
I remember it had the narrow rear wheels, and you could really turn that thing on a dime. I got to drive it a little bit. I never combined with it, but I just drove it on Sunday afternoons when Mom and Dad were gone, and you could really turn that thing on a dime. I remember that much. Yeah,
I know they had those little bitty wheels, and then sometimes they had those little weights inside of them.
Yep.
They were unique. The engine wasn't in the best place, but they were good combine.
I had a 510 later on it. Well, actually, I bought Steve's 510 way back when, probably, I don't know, 2005 or so. And I cut it down, and Brian Steiger helped me mount a snowblower on the front. And I used that for blowing snow for a while. That was kind of an interesting conglomeration. I had a forklift for it, I had a snowblower, and I had a big county highway blade for the front of it too. And I eventually sold that off to a guy from South Dakota who came with a deck over trailer. And when he got that combine up on his trailer, there must have been at least 6 to 8 inches of tire hanging on each side of the deck. I tell you what, it makes the hair on my arm stand up just thinking about him going up there without any brakes on it or anything. It was one of the most scary things I think I've ever watched.
Must have been a machinery jockey of some kind.
He said that he was just intrigued by it. He saw it on online posting. I think I had it on Craigslist or something. He said he was really intrigued by it, so he wanted to get it, and it wasn't very expensive because, of course, I hardly had any money into it, just mostly cans of spray paint, cans of cat yellow spray paint. That was probably my biggest overhead on that combine. And he just was intrigued by it. But, he had a long trailer, so he kept turning those rear wheels and trying to move along the trailer without falling off the side. And each time I was thinking to myself, what are we going to do when he falls off the side? But he never did. Got it strapped down. And as far as I know, he took it back to South Dakota.
Yeah, I know it's amazing what some people, how they can load things. We used to have a machine jockey that came down from Canada, and he would buy old discs, old swathers and stuff like that. And sometimes the way he'd load stuff was just nuts. They'd taken stack discs, if you could get them lifted up high enough, and stack them on top of each other. Sometimes he'd take, it was so impressive to watch him because he could take the shanks off of a cultivator just like that. He used a hammer, and he just knocked the heads off the bolts that held them on with a welding hammer, sledgehammer.
Yep.
And then he'd pile the shanks up or put the shanks in a box and lay the frames down flat, and he could put 3 cultivators on a load,
Mm. How long ago was that, Dave?
Oh, that was in the early 70s.
Okay. Yeah, nowadays that'd be like putting a flag on your semi and saying, "Hey, stop me and give me a good DOT going over."
Yeah, I'm sure the trailer couldn't have made a DOT inspection.
And Dave, one more combine that I saw recently that I was kind of impressed by was over at the Peters Museum in Viking, a John Deere 45 with a 2-row corn header on the front. I just thought it was the nicest looking combination. I think it was a 45. Yeah, 45 John Deere with a corn head. There's just something special about a corn head on the front. I think it's probably because we maybe didn't see a ton of it around this area when we were growing up.
Probably. It's funny because I remember on our farm, I think came with the farm, Dad had a corn binder,
Mm-hmm.
It sat in a row out there, and I don't know if we ever used it or not, but that's what they used to gather up the corn with. Mm-hmm. And but we'd never seen a corn head on anything on our farm, that's for sure.
Oh. Yeah, because everything got made into silage. I mean, there was no such thing as combining corn for kernels. I remember the first time I did it myself on my little farm. Dad was like, "Oh boy, that's not a good idea." And you know what? He was right. We had to combine that. I think we combined it December 16th. And I remember just sweating bullets. How are we going to? It was light corn. And it had to be dried. And I was just so glad to see it gone. I was just happy when it was all over with, and I thought to myself, I'll never do that again, ever.
Yeah, I think nowadays, they really worked with some varieties for this area, so you can get corn. But that said, we combined all winter long last year and well into the early summer, last year's crop. So it'll catch you every now and then, that's for sure.
Well, it's good talking today, Dave. You got anything else for us this week?
No, I guess not. We'll finish out the weekend and see what kind of trouble I can get into.
That sounds good. I'm going to do the same. You have a good weekend. Tell everybody hello.
Will do.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. There he is, my brother Dave in Carrington, North Dakota. I'm Grant Nelson here at Thief River Falls, Minnesota, at the studios of Thief River Falls Radio with Rural Reflections. Colin Dave.